Shalom, welcome. This is Hudson Institute's Deep Dive from Jerusalem and Washington, D.C. And in today's edition, we'll focus on the latest developments here in the region with focus on the situation in the Gaza Strip, of course, a terror attack in Jerusalem earlier today, the situation in Lebanon, Syria. We'll add also a little bit of context with regard to Turkey and the Islamic Republic of Iran. But before all that, without further ado, let's introduce our experts for today. And as usual, Dr. Mike Duran, who is a senior fellow and the director of the Center for Peace and Security in the Middle East at Hudson Institute, formerly a senior director at the National Security Council in Washington for the Middle East and North Africa. Next to him is Brigadier General in Reserve Yossi Kuperwasser, formerly Israel's Director General of the Israeli Ministry for Strategic Affairs, as well as the head of the IDF Intelligence Directorate's Research and Assessment Division. And last but certainly not least is Brigadier General in Reserve Dr. Amnon Sofrin, who formerly served as the Chief of the Intelligence Directorate at the Mossad, as well as a senior officer at the IDF Intelligence Directorate. It's great to see all three of you. And in light of the fact that the horrendous attack that occurred this morning in Jerusalem claimed the lives of 5 Israelis, to include also over 10 people wounded, many of them in severe condition. Dr. Duran, what needs to be taken into account within this really horrendous day when we're talking about such a deadly event, managing to penetrate the multiple layers of defense that Israel has erected over the years?
Well, good morning, Jonathan. The attack reminds us, of course, of the second Intifada because it was an attack on a crowded bus in Jerusalem. It reminds us, I think, that the Middle East, as we have known it prior to Operation Midnight Hammer and Operation Rising Lion, is still there. All of the sort of deep structural problems that we have been dealing with in this region for decades are still there. I say that in this fashion because some of the rhetoric that came out of the U.S. government and analysts, both in Israel and in the United States, after that event, suggested that we're at a great moment of the sea change, and that there's a new region that is coming into existence. It may well be. I think those events, Operation Rising Lion and Midnight Hammer, the attack on Iran's nuclear facilities and its ballistic missile facilities, I think those were indeed significant, and we could actually be seeing a turning point in the history of the region. But all of the big structural problems remain. This attack is coming against the background of an attempt by Donald Trump to broker a ceasefire in Gaza. He's asked the Hamas to release all 48 living hostages, in return for which the Israeli government will refrain from its plan to take Gaza City. This will require Hamas, however, this plan will require it to lay down its arms, something that until now it has adamantly refused to do. So I'm actually not expecting to see a positive response from Hamas, but we don't know. We'll wait and see. I'm tending to see this terror attack as Hamas's answer. That if you're going to go ahead and if you Israel are going to go ahead and go into Gaza City, then you can expect second Intifada type attacks. I also see it, and I'm speaking with no evidence here, but just my assumption of how these things are working. I see it as Iran's answer to the new reality created, where it no longer has ballistic missiles that it can hit Israel with, or it's very difficult given the current military balance hit Israel. And so it is resorting, Iran and its allies are resorting to their tried and true tactics of carrying out terror attacks in lieu of the military capabilities that they had prior to Operation Rising Lion and Midnight Hammer.
The Islamist Hamas praised the attack as a heroic one, of course, highlighting the two terror operatives that committed this attack. Nonetheless, did not take responsibility as of yet for this deadly incident. And Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu highlighted that unfortunately this, of course, attack occurred, but he did highlight that the IDF, in close cooperation with the Israeli security agency, Shin Bet, as well as Israel police, have managed to prevent hundreds of those specific types of terror attacks over the course of the past year alone, let alone over the course of the past several months. Now, General Sofrin, you served, among others, as the chief of intelligence in the IDF's Central Command, in charge of the territories from which those two terror operatives emanated from. What is the calculus and the challenge in ensuring that those type of events never happen?
It's an ongoing struggle between the security apparatus of our ISI, Internal Security Agency, the IDF, and the military intelligence to try to prevent and to deny any attack on residents that might lead to loss of lives or wounded people or something like any other version. And sometimes we fail, and sometimes that you have what we call some lone wolves, or something that you don't have early warning regarding that. And these two people came out from small villages close to Ramallah. They crossed the border fence in some area, which is probably something that they know in advance, and they get in and they succeed in, with improvised weapon system, to carry out a very lethal attack and to kill 5 persons and to wound others as well. It's something that happens once in a while. That means you don't always succeed. Let's say that if you succeed in 99% of the cases, even 1% is enough to cause such a damage like this one. And this is something that is inevitable. That means you can't deny anything or everything all the time. And sometimes you fail, and sometimes you have loss of information and lack of information, and this is a result, unfortunately.
Regrettably so. General Kupel-Vasil, if we take into account what Dr. Duran stated, in which he highlights, which I share that opinion, that President Trump's proposed plan for a ceasefire is likely not going to be accepted by the Islamist Hamas, taking also into account the fact that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has emphasized during his visit to the scene of the terror attack earlier in Jerusalem, highlighting that it does ultimately bolster the resolve of Jerusalem to apply additional pressure and to be more vigorous in its fight against terrorism. Are we expected to see the high-intensity warfare of Operation so-called Chariots 2 going into effect in the near future?
Well, look, basically, we are doing everything we can in order to fight against terrorism, both in the areas that are in Judea and Samaria areas and in Gaza. That's speaking about doing more is a little bit strange because we are doing everything we can. It's as General Sofrin said, we managed to thwart many terror attacks, and unfortunately, some of them succeed, very few. And this effort is ongoing, and it's very difficult because we have to understand the ongoing war in Gaza is translated into higher motivation to carry out terror attacks by the people who have an affiliation with the terror groups in the Judea and Samaria areas, and they try harder. And we are having our hands full with preventing those terror attacks all the time. And the true thing that we have to accomplish in order to make them less ready to carry out terror attacks is to make sure that we win the war in Gaza. That's what we need to do. If we win the war in Gaza, there's going to be much lesser incentive for those who carry out the terror attacks in Judea and Samaria to go along with that. Because as long as they feel that by doing that they can put pressure on Israel to stop short of taking over Gaza City and removing Hamas from power, they have an incentive. They have a big incentive to do that. We have to understand that the war now is about this question: whether Israel is going to remove Hamas from power by force or not. President Trump has given the Hamas an opportunity to avoid it and reach an agreement with Israel that would see the release of all of the hostages in return of some sort of wide release from jail of Palestinian terrorists, and some sort of negotiations between Israel and Hamas regarding the end of the war, under which conditions the war is going to end, but without an immediate end of the war. This is the opportunity for Hamas, although yes, we know them, they are probably going to miss this opportunity as well. But it's an opportunity for Hamas, and what Israel is doing is taking care of Hamas infrastructure in Gaza City in order to deliver the message to Hamas that you'd rather give up and take the proposal put forward by President Trump. It's not easy to convince them because when they see something like what happened this morning in Jerusalem, they get higher spirit and think that they might stop Israel from doing what needs to be done in Gaza. When they hear about the Europeans ready to recognize Palestinian state, they are again saying to themselves, "Okay, why stop the war now? We have achievements. Let's go on with it." And that's why we have to focus on defeating Hamas and releasing the hostages. This is what we have to focus on, even if we pay a price on the way. And we did pay a heavy price today. That's definitely the case. We have to remember that we pay the high price mainly from terror attacks emanating from the Judea and Samaria area. The Gazan terrorists have failed in the last couple of months of hitting Israeli civilians. They do manage to kill and hit Israeli soldiers, but not civilians. But the civilians are being killed by the terrorists from the West Bank. That's something we have to remember. Even though the numbers are declining, we had 10 casualties this year compared with 37 last year. So this effort of thwarting the terror attacks is paying off, but not fully.
Well, when it comes to the Islamist Hamas and its terror affiliates within the Palestinian street, they never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. Secretary Rubio was, of course, unequivocal in his statement in which he blamed French President Macron and France, alongside its other European partners and non-European partners, for actually causing the diplomatic discourse to fail. By deciding to proclaim their intentions to recognize Palestinian statehood at a time when Hamas was with the back against its wall. So now it has at least once again a reason to fight, or so it perceives it. And when we're talking about the negotiated proposal by President Trump, the proposal basically indicates that all 48 hostages in Hamas captivity, Israeli hostages that is, to include up to 20 of them who are believed to be still alive, would be released on day one in exchange for thousands of Palestinian detainees, including hundreds of them being convicted terrorists, with blood on their hands, murdering both Israelis as well as Americans, to put things into context here. And of course, there would be additional factors within this negotiated solution if Hamas were to accept this. Israel has already accepted. But nonetheless, Dr. Duran, when we're talking about this proposal, and we're seeing the broader scheme of things on a regional scale, what would a solution or settlement to the Gaza war look like when it comes to Lebanon or Syria or even the Islamic Republic of Iran?
I think it's a great question, Jonathan, because when we're looking at this from the American interest, it's important to understand the connections between the Gaza conflict and the conflict in Lebanon, the Gaza conflict and the Houthis, and the Gaza conflict, and of course the Iran question. I agree with every word that General Cooperwasser said about Hamas's motivations, and I would just add to that they are undoubtedly being told by Iran not to compromise. And the key thing that Hamas is fighting for is to remain the dominant actor on the ground among Gazans. Hamas no longer poses a serious military threat to Israel proper. It can't really send rockets into Israel, but it can continue to impose discipline on all of the Gazans, and it can continue to carry out attacks against Israelis inside Gaza, or to try to carry out kidnappings right on the border. If it accepts Donald Trump's proposal, then it is looking potentially at the end of its rule in Gaza, and that is unacceptable to it, and that is unacceptable to Iran as well. I think we tend to make a mistake in the West when we look at organizations like Hezbollah or Hamas or even the Iranian regime, and think that they are really somehow influenced by public opinion. What I always remind myself of is the slogan of the Assad regime during the civil war in Syria. The pro-regime forces spray painted all around the country, Assad or we'll burn the country down, meaning either you support Assad or we will destroy the country itself. And they did that. It wasn't just a slogan. All of Syria's cities that were not under the complete control of the Assad forces, and there's really only two that were, that's Damascus and Latakia. They've all been destroyed, if not totally, then at least in large measure. And so when we look at that, I think when we look at Gaza, we think there's no way that Hamas has been defeated. There's no way it wouldn't come to political terms right now. But it doesn't see itself as being defeated as long as it can control the population. It's not representing the population, it's controlling it, because it knows that that's the great card that it uses to get sympathy in Europe and elsewhere. It's an incredibly cynical game where a terror organization hides behind civilians, and just not just hiding behind civilians, it's using the civilians and using the death of civilians in order to get sympathy for itself in the West. I'm slightly disappointed with the rhetoric of the Trump administration, because I think what we should be defining as the American interest is the defeat of Hamas. The United States has an interest in this conflict, not just in terms of helping our friend Israel, but in terms of our own interests against the Iranian network, and behind it, the Chinese who are supporting it, the Chinese and the Russians. We have an interest in seeing that organization defeated. And when we have European allies like Spain, like France, the UK, and even the Canadians, when we see them moving toward a recognition of a Palestinian state, there should be a clear red line that they are crossing the American interest and indeed the Western interest by pushing this line.
Well, the Spaniards, alongside the Norwegians, Irish, and Slovenia, have already jumped the gun. So they already recognized a Palestinian state. Australia joined, of course, the French being the latest in a string of nations that have voiced their intentions to recognize a Palestinian state by the end of September. So that is quite significant. Now, I will point out that, as Dr. Duran just mentioned, everything is interconnected. And that is something that people need to understand. From 2014, when the supreme leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, came out and tweeted at the time that the way to, or 9 reasons to destroy Israel, one of the points that he highlighted was to flood the so-called West Bank, Judea and Samaria, with money and weapons, just like in Gaza, in order to enable the Palestinians there to destroy Israel. That was one of the points that ultimately led, after, of course, all the smuggling of weapons and funds into the territories, it led Israel to launch Operation Wavebreaker, which ultimately frustrated the Palestinians in Gaza, particularly the Islamist Hamas, to the point where their reaction to their loss of power in the northern Samaria region had also, or was one of the factors that led them to launch an attack on October 7th, which ultimately was part of a broader Iranian scheme to destroy Israel. So again, there is an interconnectivity here. Now, when we're talking about all those various proxies, General Sofrin, particularly Ansar Allah, which is dominated by the Houthi tribe in Yemen, continues to launch attacks on a regular basis towards Israeli territory, including 1 drone earlier today, 3 drones yesterday. One of those drones happened to strike at the Ramon International Airport, just in the vicinity of the most southern city of Israel, Eilat. This airport has resumed operations since, but nonetheless, this penetration was unexpected.
Right, you're right, Jonathan, because when you look at these Houthis, Ansar Allah, they have their own ideology, they're stubborn, they don't give up. Just bear in mind that a few months ago, the Americans and the British Air Force bombed them for about a month without any break. They didn't succeed in breaking their spirit, in taking them down on their knees to give up. And the President suddenly stopped the bombarding and said they were declaring on a ceasefire. And ever since, they're attacking Israel over and over again. And as long as we are going and deepen our capabilities in Gaza and going into Gaza Strip and into Gaza City, they're intensifying their attacks. And bear in mind that this is kind of dual use, for first of all to support the Palestinians, and second, as a revenge for what happened to them when we bombarded the government and the senior leadership, political leadership. And the fact is that they're launching not only missiles, but now they're focusing on UAVs on a daily basis. Yesterday, 6 of them were launched into Israel, 2 fell on the way, 3 were intercepted, and 1 succeeded in penetrating the defense layers and to hit what we call the Ramon airport. And today they launched 3 more UAVs that were intercepted on the way. That means they are learning, I believe, the lesson from Russia, the way Russia attacks Ukraine using a lot of UAVs simultaneously that are what we call intensifying the fact that the anti-aircraft systems are what we call are overwhelmed because of the quantity, and they don't succeed in intercepting them all. And this is kind of an adoption of this idea into the Houthis' course of action. And I believe that this is the way they're using it right now, to launch some UAVs simultaneously, not the quantity that Russia can launch into Ukraine. Just yesterday, they launched 800 UAVs into Ukraine. And now they're sending only 6 or 3, but the challenge for us is getting bigger.
Absolutely. Well, we're drawing near to the end of today's edition, and General Kupelwasser, I'd still like to ask your perspective. If you are now, of course you are, but if you were now to advise the Prime Minister and Israel's defense establishment, as well here in Jerusalem as well as in Washington, what would your recommendation be in confronting those accumulative threats?
Well, we have to deal with each and every one of them. We have to respond to the Houthi attacks And we did caused a lot of damage to the Houthis and especially to their leadership, and we have to do more. Because in the end of the day, with all their resolve and commitment to the goal of destroying Israel, at a certain point, the question of how much they are ready to pay for that is going to be on the table. And I think we can cause them to reassess their policy. We went for the prime minister. We should go probably for the leader himself. That's what's necessary when we deal with this kind of regime. The second thing, but in an overall picture, from the overall picture, I think what we need to focus on is Gaza. That's where the prime minister says that's where the war started. That's where it's going to end. We have to focus on Gaza. We have to remove Hamas from power. If it's going to be through a negotiated agreement, okay, fine, better for everybody. If not, then we should be ready to take the military steps that are necessary in order to remove Hamas from power, and we can't do that. We are closing in on the city, and we shall be able to do that, and we are causing a lot of damage to the infrastructure of Hamas. That happens to be also the civilian infrastructure of Gaza. A lot of high-rising buildings are destroyed, and Hamas have to also take this into account. In the past, in 2014, this handling of the high-rising building led Hamas to give up. But the situation today is more dangerous from Hamas' point of view because what's at stake is its existence. It cannot give up so easily the control of Gaza City and the control of the Gazan population.
Thank you, General Kupil-Vasil. For this, all the time that we have for today. I'd like to thank Dr. Mike Duran, Dr. General Amnon Sofrin, and General Yossi Kupil-Vasil for all of your insights. And I'd like to thank all of you at home as well. Until our next edition from here in Jerusalem. Shalom.
My name is Eran Lerman. I used to be Deputy National Security Advisor to the Government of Israel, currently Vice President of the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security, a think tank, and the editor of the Jerusalem Strategic Tribune. For the last few years, I've been a regular panelist for TV7, a fantastic opportunity to bring deep and analytical perspectives to the debate over regional affairs, Israeli affairs, international affairs, in the company of some of the best minds in Israel.